Hello, everybody, and welcome to a Bright Founders Talk at Temy. Now, Temy is an international software development company that designs, builds, and delivers software for sustainable businesses and promising startups. Welcome to a podcast where we bring you the most inspiring stories of entrepreneurs and experts in the software development industry. And each week we interview successful leaders who share their unique journeys and valuable insights. I'm your host, Barry, and today we have another amazing guest joining us, Noel Wilson, CEO and founder at Intelligenic. Hello, Noel. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Barry. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited to have the conversation today.
Perfect. Lovely. Thank you so much for coming. We know you're a busy person. So would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself and the company that you work at?
Good to share. I'm Noel Wilson, CEO and founder of Intelligenic. Um, Founded the company back in 2023. That was after 28 years of experience in software development, primarily from a consulting perspective. I started my career, very much hands-on, ended up leading the teams delivering complex software solutions for our clients. And then ultimately I was responsible for the business and growing the business. And these were with companies like, this is how long I've been in this business. I was Anderson Consulting when I started, which eventually became Accenture. That's what probably everybody knows them as now, and eventually worked at Avanade, which was a subsidiary of Accenture focusing on Microsoft related solutions. And then worked at several tech startups, helping them with their professional services strategy and execution, including Oracle, NetApp, EMC, and eventually wrapped up my consulting career at TopTal, which I like to refer to as Consulting 2.0. They use freelancers as opposed to full-time staff to deliver complex software solutions and technical solutions. At any rate, throughout my career and throughout all of those stops, it had become abundantly clear to me that our process for building software solutions was highly inefficient. First and foremost, we just, quite frankly, never had enough qualified people to meet the demand for all the software that we were being asked to build. And then when we finally had the team assembled, when we were able to get the qualified people, it always ended up being too much of a manual process, more than you would expect, especially for what we were building and the technology that we were creating, which always led to long delivery times, lots of effort, and significant costs. But I knew that there had to be a better way to do this. And so right around 2023, this was the emergence of artificial intelligence for all kinds of workflows. OpenAI's ChatGPT was released, I think, at the tail end of 2022. So everybody was really exploring how you could apply it. And I knew that there was an amazing opportunity for us to take advantage of these emerging technologies, to apply it to that workflow, to improve upon it, to automate it, and to really finally get the teams to the level of productivity that we've always wanted so that we can actually truly meet the demand for all the software that we were being asked to build. So it's a little bit about my background, a little bit about, the genesis of Intelligent.
A lot of people do seem to end up going into the founder or entrepreneurship. Was that something that had always appealed to you, or was it kind of just it just happened to happen?
It was always something of interest to me. So I'd always been involved. I wouldn't say always. I've have a background in enterprise companies, but then I've also had a experience with many different startups as well. So there's always been this interest and this desire to participate in it. But all throughout my career, I would be the first to admit that I would take the safe route, which would be, seeking employment, getting the job. And quite frankly, I think just in the United States, and I think this might be the case in a lot of countries around the world where that safe route is encouraged. You go through your early studies, you then move on to university, and in university, you're learning some sort of skill and tradecraft. In my case, that was computer science and business, with the concept that eventually you get to working for someone, a job, right? And not to say that entrepreneurship is discouraged, but it's almost like this dark art that doesn't get talked about a lot, and there's not really much in the way of great programs that help people with that. And then culturally, it's also one of these things where people are just amazed that you're able to pull it off, right? I wouldn't say that they are, again, discouraging you, but the all of the training and all of the cultural mechanisms that we have in place just kind of gear people towards go get your training and go work for somebody. That's what you do and everything. So I followed that path, pretty consistently throughout my career. But then towards the end of my consulting career, I just started to realize that with all the experience that I've gained, that the timing was right for me to finally take that leap and begin to create my own company, where I can apply all of the amazing, incredible learnings that I had to get it started, to manage it, to execute, avoid some of the challenges that I'd experienced along the way. And it served me well. I don't think I would have been completely ready to start a company early on. You always hear of entrepreneurs in college, early 20 somethings that are all about doing that. And that's amazing. That's incredible. If they're ready for it, fantastic. But I also know that there's a lot of experiences that they've never had, and they're going to have to go through that and learn how to deal with the challenges that inevitably come along with that, and hopefully they have the right people to help and support them. But I just knew at that point, that I was ready. I was ready to start Intelligenic. I knew that the solution that I wanted to offer was absolutely appropriate for what was happening in the market. And so I took the leap and made it happen.
So who is it Intelligenic for? Like, who is it built for? Who are your customers? Who do you want to appeal to?
For sure. So Intelligenic, we're building an AI-driven framework. It's called Product Studio that automates all facets of the software development process. We do that by generating enterprise context that we can provide to our agentic framework so that it will create production ready software and code with minimal iteration. So we're effectively enabling this concept of vibe coding where people enter, prompts and some context and create some working software, right? Well, we're taking it to the next level where we're building a framework that will help large scale organizations build the truly complex applications that they need to build that require structure and planning to make that successful. So we focus on enterprise organizations that are large in nature, have big teams, that have complex processes, that have complex software, where the vast majority of tools in market right now, I would say, do an okay job. If you have the right skill and you understand what is the right context to provide, and you understand what sort of structure and planning is required to be able to get the most out of them. We take care of that. We provide a framework that does all of that so that these enterprises can truly gain the productivity that we've been promising them for years and move away from, minimal productivity gains, minimal cost reductions to true force multiplication in the case, in the size of like 10x improvements. We also focus on custom software right now, but in the long run, we fully intend to make our product available for any kind of software that requires any sort of enhancement to meet an organization's specific needs.
It's not, you mentioned it here, but I have seen some other things as well that you've mentioned it. Context-driven development. Why is it so important for context-driven development to be in your kind of software development process?
It's hypercritical. It's hypercritical. What you find that happens is that the vast majority of organizations that are attempting to use artificial intelligence to build their software are just unable to get true productivity gains and cost reductions. McKinsey did a study last year where they surveyed many of their clients, and of those clients that were using AI and software development, only about, most of them, the vast majority, were only getting about 10 to 20% cost savings and productivity gains. So why is that? The reason for that is that most people that are trying to use artificial intelligence do a few things. First of all, they don't fully understand what sort of context they need to provide, like the information that they need to make available to the large language models to get it to understand what you're trying to build. These large language models, they don't understand anything about your organization. They've never heard. It's like you just hired a developer, you didn't give them any onboarding, and you asked them to go build something related, to your organization. That will never work with the human. We can't expect that to work with artificial intelligence. So that's number one. It really requires information about your organization. What is it that you do? What's your strategy? What are your goals? What are the challenges that you face? information about the application. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? What do you think the solution is? Who are the people that are going to be using it? Those specific items start to build this picture of context that the models can then use to then interpret what they should produce as far as a relevant and quality output. Most organizations don't even understand that, right? Most organizations wouldn't be able to do that even with their humans. And that's why a lot of software initiatives have failed historically. Speaking from my own experience as an IT consultant building complex software solutions, that was like the number one thing that we help people with. We'd be like, well, I understand you want to jump ahead to the solution. Let's start with the problem. Let's start with understanding your organization. Let's start with what it is that you want to build. You need to do all of those things first. And you have to have that in just excruciatingly deep detail to be able to provide to the humans that will then use artificial intelligence to get that to produce something. The other challenge that I find is that most organizations don't have the expertise in their people to even understand, once you've gathered all that context, to how to apply it and offer it to the models, nor do they have the deepest understanding on the type of instructions, the prompts that they need to offer to the model to get it to produce quality output. And then when it gets produced, they don't understand what's good. Like, how can you, like, just taking it at face value, that's a problematic issue. In fact, one of the bigger issues that we're going to see here, we're already seeing, is that the models are great at producing something. You tell it to do it, it'll do it, but it produces what I call as tech debt. So it's things that aren't necessary, may not completely work, that is completely bloating your software, making it harder and harder to manage over the long run. It takes more resources from a compute perspective, takes more human resources, takes more AI resources to get it to work. This is growing pretty significantly because people are just taking the outputs at carte blanche, right? Like, just whatever it produces. So you need to have that level of expertise to even understand, is this even necessary?
Yeah.
Why did it give me all these libraries? I don't need those libraries for this application. Why did it write? No, 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 I don't need that. So a lot of people are just expecting that, oh, I just plug it in and it's going to, create great returns. What's happening then is that it's taking a lot of human effort to go back and iterate again and again to get it to produce what you need and review what is being produced to make sure that it's actually meeting your needs and is not creating this massive amount of tech debt. So the combination of those things are creating significant problems for many organizations, large scale organizations. The only organizations that I've seen that have been very successful at using it without a framework like what we provide with Intelligenic Product Studio are those that have deep expertise in software development and understand the value of context and understand how to instruct it and understand what is good. Without that, you need a framework like ours to help guide you through that process to ensure that what is produced is actually of relevance to what you're trying to deliver and of the quality that you're trying to deliver.
Are there like certain stages of development that you think are going to benefit most from AI automation?
I think all stages will benefit from it. So our platform doesn't just focus on code generation. I think that gets the most attention and press right now. That's the shiny object. It's like, oh, wow, I can just provide it a simple prompt and give it a little bit of context, and it creates this amazing, simple application or prototype. And that's great. I love that. That's better than it's ever been. But there's so much more to software development than doing that. You need to spend the time to go through your discovery effort where you're determining the what, the why, the how that you're going to build something. You need to spend the time thinking through the most appropriate architecture, the most appropriate user experience and user interface. And then once you've gathered all of these specifications, then you can start to provide that in a very structured and planned fashion to your agent framework or your LLM, if you're just going straight to one of the models that's available to do that, and it will begin to produce much more relevant and higher quality code than you'll ever see. And then beyond that, you also should apply it to quality assurance testing. That's a right now, and there are tools that can help automate that, but there still requires a high level of human element to be able to get those tools set up, create the right scripts so that it can test based on the functionality that you think it should be meeting those expected results, right? There's a lot of time and effort that goes into that. It can be absolutely applied to that. And then you need to be able to deploy it in a repeatable fashion. But wouldn't it be incredible to have one integrated framework that can manage all of that? And that's what we do at Product Studio.
Can you see
Well,
like
yeah, yeah.
Is there an eventuality where you think like these kind of AI will help like reduce the length of time that's required to complete a software project, like from months or days or weeks? Are we there yet where we can have those kind of discussion of timescales, or is that some way off still?
No, we're definitely there. Again, if you apply those principles that I had shared earlier, pay attention to context, spend the time to get that right. Pay attention to how you're going to manage the instruction of that model to produce the code, and don't try to do it all at once. That's another area of challenge that I see most organizations face. They think that they could just, put everything in this small context window. Granted, context windows are getting better and bigger, and expect to have a full blown working application. We're not quite there yet. They do okay at that. I always advise everybody, break it down into more manageable chunks, just like you would with your development team. You would never go ask your development team, hey, can you go build an interface that will and an application that will integrate with my partner? And let's say it's two banks. Can you go do that this next week? You start there. But there's so many activities that would go into that leading up to actually producing something. What you would do is you break it down into a manageable chunk, like a user story, and you put that into some sort of like a Jira ticket, for example, and you would assign that to a developer and then work on that little piece of functionality. Well, I recommend that people do that when they're using artificial intelligence. You need to think of these things as if it's just like this digital human, right? If you wouldn't ask a human to do it, why would you ask the artificial intelligence to do it? Now it'll do it a whole lot faster than that human, and allow you to be able to repeat that again and again and try things, which is fantastic about it. So I think we are there if you use it in um, applying those principles, the right context, understanding how to instruct it, understanding what is good, breaking things down into more manageable and incremental tasks, not trying to do everything at once. You can see a massive gain in productivity and a reduction in the time required to produce that, as well as the effort as well. The reality is that most organizations aren't getting that right now because they're not applying those principles. But once they start doing that, or they use a framework that can help them do that, then they will get much more proficient at creating software in much less time, with much less effort and much less cost.
Do you think software engineers should be worried about the development of AI? Do you see their role being redundant, or do you see their role evolving into a different role entirely?
I think it's the evolution of the role. Things are a little bit different. This is a new tool in the tool chest for developers. And those that embrace it will be successful. Those that hesitate and resist will not. They're the ones that are at risk. Now, with that said, I do believe that artificial intelligence, not just for software development, but for any kind of workflow that you can apply it to, will be one of the greatest force multipliers that we've ever seen in the history of humanity. What gets the press right now is certainly about how it can potentially eliminate certain needs to do certain things, and or people that are responsible for those things. But people, that's very short-sighted. Yes, that means that might be true for how you operate today, but let me pose it in a different way. What if with that same group of people, or let's say a group of people that is twice as big as you had before, you were able to create hundreds of more applications than you ever had before, hundreds of more features and functionality? You need to be thinking about it that way. There's plenty of software that we just never get to because we don't have the availability of people or the tools to be able to enable that to happen. But now, if you have a tool that will enable those people to be able to do that more efficiently in less time, less effort, that opens up all kinds of possibilities on the problems that you can solve. So I always urge people to don't think about the immediate, think about the long term opportunity associated with that and what you can do. If you had a team that was so proficient at what you're asking them to do, that would be a pretty powerful organization to be part of, and what you can on all the problems that you can address and the solutions that you can create.
So when you're looking at the AI capabilities and the implementation of it, if there's something like particularly exciting and you think like, oh yeah, that would be really exciting to put in there, but I don't think we're quite there yet. How do you balance the like the fantastical vision that you may have for the future of your company, but still trying to maintain like a realistic, pragmatic foothold in where you can actually be at the moment.
We'll start with your current plans. This is that's number one. Um, where I find organizations that get challenged is when they don't have a clear understanding of what it is they want to do, and they don't have a structured plan for how they're going to accomplish that. It's the number one issue with technology and the application of it in the history of technology is that people just think that, well, if I just go get it, it's going to solve my problem, right? That's never worked. You just don't buy software and like, okay, done. No, you need to define like number what is the problem you're trying to solve? What's your execution plan? Make sure that everybody is aligned within the organization. Most often the people that might have the idea and the plan aren't aligned with the people that are going to execute that. And so whatever you get in the middle is not going to meet the needs of the overall organization. So always approach it with a plan. I tell people, regardless of the workflow, whether it's software development or any other workflow that you're going to try to apply artificial intelligence to, is number one, define that workflow. What is it? How do you actually operate that workflow today? Define all of that and then identify areas that are highly human intensive, very manual, very repetitive. And then you could start to formulate how you might be able to apply a technology solution to be able to automate that. Without that, again, this is the whole concept of context. Without that context, it's never going to work.
Mm.
Don't expect it to work. Don't make a massive, investment in the technology if you don't have an understanding of how it's going to help you and what that plan is for you to be able to go utilize it to get the most out of it. And then also establish measurements and track them. I I don't know what the number is, but when I talk to my customers, nobody's really doing it. They're just trying to see what happens. The one measurement though that gets everybody's attention is the token usage and the cost. And they're like, "Whoa, what's this?" Right? So in many ways, it's a lot like the early days of cloud computing, where people just kind of stood it up and they're like, "Oh, that's great. I don't have to do anything anymore." And then they looked at their bill at the end of the month and like, "What happened here?" All these resources that weren't being used. And in many ways, it's the same with the use of artificial intelligence being used, but not in the most appropriate way, and probably not the best way for the organization. You need to have that plan for how you're going to use it and understanding how it's going to benefit you, and then measure it, and then adjust and fine tune and change and continue to adapt, but take advantage of the tools to the best that you can.
If or when Intelligenic succeeds, what would that success look like? Is it like a massive customer base? Is it massive profits? What is success in your eyes for the company?
Sure, sure. So we've done some analysis of the opportunity, as you can imagine. According to our research, there's well over 30 million people worldwide that are involved. I think that number is much larger now. Um, and and these are people beyond just software engineers, right? So it would be product managers, it would be UX UI designers, it would be the software engineers, it would be QA engineers, DevOps engineers, the people that are responsible for leading these initiatives, everybody that's involved. So it's a pretty significant group of individuals that are building software around the world. Obviously, it'd be incredible if we got all 30 million, but I'm pretty pragmatic about these things. So even if we got a small percentage, let's say just something like 1%, 300,000 users, that's a pretty good customer base utilizing our platform. And then we're talking about potentially earning anywhere from, in the hundreds of millions to close to billions of dollars a year in revenue, right? That would be success for sure. Uh, we're going to take it incrementally, and we're going to gain those first customers. We've already done that. Our largest customer to date is the United States government, the Air Force. They love what we're doing for them. We demonstrated how we can help them with their discovery activities. Now they want us to help them with all the other activities as well. That's how you get started. It's like get that anchor customer and then build upon that and look for other commercial enterprise scale customers and continue to build upon that and add more and more users and more customers so that you can continue to grow the platform. So that's why I would look at it from a business perspective. From an overall macro perspective, industry perspective, we would provide the platform that would enable organizations to finally build all the software that they're being asked to build and move beyond limited productivity gains and cost reductions to a true force multiplier where anybody in their organization will be able to produce 10 times the amount of output that they ever were before, so that we can create the software that's going to be required for the next generation of human, history that we're going to be writing. We're writing that right now. That's the way I look at it. That's what gets me excited about it. Obviously there's a whole business side, it's very important. You need that to be a going concern. But like I want to change the world. I want to change the way that people think about developing software. And artificial intelligence is our tool to make that happen.
What a great answer. Just before we finish, though, Noel, my same question that I always ask everyone is like, maybe there's someone watching this now, someone who wants to become an entrepreneur, wants to become like an AI company co-founder or founder. What advice would you give to them? What's the most important piece of advice that they should know?
Uh, It's multifaceted, but I would say believe in yourself. That's the number one thing. I think that's the number one thing that prevents anybody from doing it because it's scary. Like it's the hardest thing you will do professionally to believe that you've got it. You've got the capability to make it happen and trust that. And then once you believe in yourself, take that first step. It's like looking out into this chasm and you cannot see the bottom. You see the other side. You're not really totally sure how to get there, but you have an idea of what might work and trusting that if you take that first step, you're not going to fall into the abyss. You're going to find a foothold. And then once you take that first step, you're like, okay, I'm committed. I'm going to take the next step. And then you keep doing it until you get across. That's the number one thing, you know. And don't listen to the naysayers. There's going to be a lot. There always is. Listen to yourself, your own internal voice, and surround yourself with people that believe in you, believe in the journey, and can help you. Like you would be surprised. There are networks of people out there that are available to help people through this journey. I found that right away, month one. And I've completely immersed myself in that network of people that I have to help me make this successful. You need that because as much as you could, you have the first step is believing in yourself. You need to get some of that validation externally to keep you going because there's a lot of peaks and valleys, or probably more valleys than peaks. And you need that to get out of the valleys to get to that next peak and revel in that success. And then the last thing I would say is that recognize those moments of success and honor yourself and the team when you accomplish it. So important to recognize that, hey, we did a good job here. We got our first customer. We got our first release. We consistently released every week. We earned this revenue, right? We made this one feature work, which we didn't think we were going to be able to work. All those things are so important. Recognize that and make sure that everybody on your team is aware of that as well.
Perfect. That's amazing advice. An amazing way to finish this podcast. So, Noel, I just want to thank you so much again for taking time to talk with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. This has been a great opportunity for me. I really appreciate the time as well.
Thank you very much. That was Noel Wilson, CEO and founder at Intelligenic.